Family.
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 500 years ago, Machiavelli figured out something about power that your family never learned. And it's the reason you feel trapped by invisible chains they built. See, Machiavelli asked a simple question. Is it better to be feared or loved? And his answer shows why your family stayed small while others became legends. But here's what's crazy. Everything your family taught you about playing it safe wasn't their weakness. It was getting you ready. Every fear your great-grandmother held back. Every dream your grandfather gave up. Every time someone in your family said, "People like us don't do that," Machiavelli would have called that stored-up energy, just waiting for the right person to finally let it loose and become unforgettable. The same families that make generations of people who choose being loved over being respected are the exact families ready to make someone who finally chooses power over being popular. It's not an accident, it's family momentum building up. But here's the question that's going to change everything. Are you going to keep carrying your family's need to be liked as something heavy to drag around? Or are you finally ready to use their fear of standing out as fuel to become the greatest your family has ever seen? Because what I'm about to show you will flip everything you think you know about family habits, power, and leaving your mark upside down. You're going to find out why your ancestors' greatest gift wasn't their niceness. It was their holding back, and how Machiavelli's old wisdom holds the key to breaking every chain they accidentally made. The answer starts with understanding something most people never learn about the weight their families pass down. Here's something your family never told you. You didn't just inherit your grandfather's eyes or your mother's smile. You inherited their fears, their doubts, their quiet acceptance of a life that's just okay. Right now, there are invisible chains wrapped around your dreams. Chains built by generations of people who chose safety over success, who said be realistic when they really meant stay small, who taught you that wanting more makes you greedy, that standing out makes you a target. Scientists have found that families pass down their limiting beliefs like a cold spreads from person to person. Your great-grandmother's fear of taking chances? It's living in your body right now, making your heart pound every time you think about starting that business, creating that art, making that bold move you know you should make. But here's what's crazy. Your family didn't create these chains to hurt you. They created them to protect you. Every "don't get your hopes up" was their way of saving you from the pain they couldn't handle. Every "play it safe" was how they showed love, the only way they knew how. The problem? Their protection became your prison. Their pain became your normal. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that their limits were actually yours. Think about it. When was the last time someone in your family took a real risk? When did anyone break the rules, shock everyone, become truly unforgettable? If you can't think of anyone, you're starting to see the weight your family put on your shoulders. But what if I told you that these very chains, these inherited patterns of fear and settling, what if they're not your burden to carry, but your fuel to burn? What if the very thing that's been holding your family back for generations is about to become the rocket fuel that launches you into greatness? Because here's the truth that changes everything. The same family line that produced generations of playing it safe just produced you. And you're about to learn why that's not an accident, it's preparation. Your ancestors' fear wasn't a mistake, it was storage. And you're about to discover what happens when generations of bottled up potential finally find someone brave enough to release it. Now here's where it gets wild. 500 years ago, a person named Machiavelli figured out something about power that your family never learned. Something that explains why they stayed small while others became legends. Machiavelli asked a simple question. Is it better to be loved or feared? And his answer changed everything. He said, if you can't have both, choose fear. Not because he was mean, but because he understood people better than anyone before him. Here's why your great-grandfather failed and you don't have to. He chose to be loved. He wanted everyone's approval. He made himself small so others would feel comfortable. He whispered when he should have spoken up, said sorry when he should have stood strong, and asked permission when he should have just done it. Think about Rosa Parks for a second. She wasn't loved by everyone when she refused to give up that bus seat. She was feared. The whole system feared what she stood for, someone who wouldn't follow their unfair rules anymore. And that fear, it changed history. It made her unforgettable. Or Gandhi walking to the sea to make salt. The British didn't love him for it. They feared him, because they knew that one person who refuses to back down can inspire millions to stand up. But here's what's crazy about your family's story. They thought being nice would keep them safe. They thought if they just kept everyone happy, stayed quiet, didn't make waves, they'd be protected. Instead, they became invisible, forgettable. Their kindness became their prison. Now, I'm not saying you should be mean or heartless. Machiavelli wasn't talking about being cruel. He was talking about being respected instead of just liked. About being someone whose no actually means something because your yes has real value. Your boss doesn't promote the person everyone likes. They promote the person they can't afford to lose. Your customers don't remember the business that always said yes to everything. They remember the one that challenged their thinking and gave them results they couldn't get anywhere else. You see, your family chose the easy path. They traded their power for being popular. They gave up their voice to get validation. And generation after generation, that choice got passed down like a family tradition until it reached you. But what if those invisible chains we talked about, what if they weren't just holding you back? What if they were building pressure, like a spring being pushed down tighter and tighter, storing energy for the moment someone finally decides to let it go? Because here's the thing about being the first in your family to choose respect over approval. You're not just breaking your own chains. You're breaking chains that have trapped your bloodline for generations. And that kind of freedom, it creates a force powerful enough to change everything. The same family that taught you to shrink is about to watch you grow. And they're going to learn something they never knew was possible. That the greatest gift you can give the people you love isn't making them comfortable. It's showing them what's possible when someone refuses to stay small. All right, now comes the scary part. Because understanding those invisible chains is one thing. Actually breaking them? That's where most people back down. Remember that push-down spring we talked about? Well, here's what happens when you finally decide to let it go. Everything your family taught you about how things should be done has to go. Every safe choice, every smart decision, every time they said maybe next year or let's see what happens, all of it gets thrown in the fire. Experts call this burning the blueprint. It's when you literally destroy the mental map your family gave you and start drawing a new one. And let me tell you something. Your body's going to freak out about this. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman I know who comes from 5 generations of teachers. Her great-great-grandmother was a teacher. Her great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, all teachers. Safe job, steady paycheck, summers off. The family motto was basically, teaching is good work and good work is enough. But Sarah had this wild dream of starting her own business. Every family dinner she'd mention it, and the response was always the same. But you have such a secure job. Why risk everything when you're already doing well? People like us don't start businesses, we help others. When Sarah finally quit teaching to start her company, her body went crazy. Heart racing, couldn't sleep, panic attacks at the store. Her family thought she was having a breakdown. But here's what was really happening. Her body was screaming because she was breaking 100 years of family habits. Your body doesn't know the difference between real danger and breaking family rules. So when you start doing things differently, your heart will race, your hands will sweat, and every part of you will yell, "Stop! This isn't how we do things." That's not being weak. That's just how your body works. Your family's fear is literally built into your system. But here's the thing about fear. It's not your enemy. It's your guide. It shows you exactly where you need to go. Every time Sarah felt that panic rising up, that was her family's old programming trying to keep her small. And every time she moved forward anyway, she was changing history. Think about it like this. Your great-grandmother probably had a dream she never went after. Maybe she wanted to start a business, or travel the world, or speak up in a room full of men. But every time she got close, that fear kicked in. That voice that said, people like us don't do things like that. So she backed down. She played it safe. She passed that fear to your grandmother, who passed it to your mother, who passed it to you. But what if, and here's where it gets crazy, what if you're the one that dream was waiting for? What if all those generations of playing it safe were just building up pressure for this moment, when someone in your family finally says, enough? Sarah's family didn't take it well at first. Her mother cried. Her grandmother stopped talking to her for months. They said she was being selfish, forgetting her values, throwing away everything they'd worked for. But here's what nobody tells you about breaking family patterns. It's not just scary for you, it's scary for them too. When you start doing things they were too afraid to do, it makes them think about their own missed chances. And some of them won't like it. But here's the truth. You're not forgetting where you came from. You're remembering where you're going. Every time you stop that old pattern, like when your family says, be careful, and instead of shrinking, you say, I will, and I'm doing it anyway. You're not just changing your life. You're changing your family's story. 3 years later, Sarah's business is doing great. And you know what? Her mother now brags about her business owner daughter to everyone. Her grandmother asked for business advice. The same family line that made generations of scared people is about to make someone who uses that fear as power. And that's not breaking your family's story. That's finishing it. Now here's where everything Sarah learned and everything you're learning gets really wild. Because once you start breaking those family habits, you face a choice that will decide whether you get forgotten or become someone people can't ignore. Remember when we talked about Machiavelli's question, fear or love? Well, here's the part he understood that most people miss. Being loved makes you feel good. Being feared makes you unforgettable. Think about your own life for a second. Can you name your great-great-grandfather? Do you know what he cared about? What he dreamed about? What made him special? Probably not. And that's not your fault. That's what happens when people choose to be liked over being remembered. But you know who everyone remembers? The people who made others think. Steve Jobs didn't become famous by being the nicest person in the room. He became famous by refusing to accept okay. He made people uncomfortable. He challenged everything. And that's exactly why Apple didn't just do well. It changed the world. Let me tell you about Marcus, a person who worked at the same company for 15 years. Nice person, everyone liked him, always said yes to everything. He never complained, never pushed back, never caused any trouble. He thought being the team player would get him promoted. Instead, when layoffs came, he was the first to go. Why? Because he was replaceable. He was comfortable. Meanwhile, his coworker, Jessica, she was different. She'd speak up in meetings when she disagreed. She'd challenge bad ideas, even from the boss. She'd say no when projects didn't make sense. Some people thought she was difficult, but when promotion time came, guess who got it? Jessica, because she was unforgettable. Here's what's crazy about leaving your mark today. We're sharing more stuff than any people in history, but most of it just disappears. Your Instagram posts, your Facebook updates, your videos, they're all fighting for attention in a world where being nice and safe makes you invisible. But the people who get remembered online, they're the ones willing to speak up, to say something that makes people think or question or even get a little upset. They understand that getting people talking creates lasting impact. Look at people like Oprah or The Rock. They didn't build their success by telling people what they wanted to hear. They built it by telling them what they needed to hear, even when it was hard to accept. Because here's the truth about how people work. We forget the people who make us feel comfortable, but we never forget the people who make us feel something real. Marcus learned this the hard way. After he got laid off, he started his own business. But this time, he did things differently. Instead of trying to please everyone, he stood for something. He turned down clients who didn't respect his worth. He charged what he was actually worth, not what felt safe. And you know what happened? His business took off, because finally he became someone people couldn't ignore. Now, I'm not saying you should be mean or rude just for attention. That's not what this is about. This is about understanding that your great-grandmother's dream of not making waves, that dream dies with her. No one remembers people who never stood up for anything. Remember that stored-up energy we talked about? All that potential your family saved up by playing it safe? Well, here's where it gets let loose. Not by being louder, but by being braver. Not by being ruder, but by being real. Because here's what Sarah found out, what Marcus discovered, and what you're about to find out. When you stop trying to make everyone comfortable, you start making everyone think. When you stop saying sorry for being yourself, you start inspiring others to be themselves too. Your family taught you that standing out was scary, but they had it wrong. In a world of 7 billion people, being forgettable is what's actually scary. Being someone who never made a splash, never started a conversation, never left a mark, that's the real loss. So here's the question that's going to stick with you. 50 years from now, when your great-grandchildren are trying to figure out who they are and where they came from, what story will they find? Will they find someone who played it safe and disappeared into the crowd? Or will they find someone who was brave enough to be remembered? Because the same family line that made generations of invisible people is about to make someone who refuses to disappear. And that's not just breaking the cycle. That's becoming the ancestor your family was always meant to have. This is where everything changes. Because what Sarah learned, what Marcus figured out, and what you're about to understand is this. You're not just breaking free from your family's limits. You're creating a completely new family story. Think about it this way. Every family has that one person who changed everything. The one who broke the pattern, took the risk, made the jump that everyone else was too scared to make. Maybe in your family, that person doesn't exist yet. Maybe that person is you. Remember those invisible chains we talked about at the beginning? Well, here's the crazy part. The same chains that held your family back are about to become the foundation you build on. Every fear they had, every dream they gave up, every time they said, maybe tomorrow, all of that isn't wasted. It's been getting ready for you. Let me tell you about Maria. She grew up in a family where every woman worked as a housekeeper or babysitter. Her great-grandmother, grandmother, and mother, all of them cleaned other people's houses. It was good work, but it came with invisible limits. We're service people, her mother would say. We take care of others. That's what we do. But Maria had this secret dream. She wanted to own the houses, not just clean them. She wanted to sell real estate. Every time she brought it up, her family would shake their heads. Real estate is for rich people, Mia. People like us don't sell houses. We clean them. When Maria was 30, she made a choice. She used her savings to get her real estate license. Her family thought she was throwing away steady work for something impossible. You're going to fail and come back to cleaning, they said. At least cleaning pays the bills. But Maria saw something different. All those years her family spent inside other people's homes, they learned things. They knew which neighborhoods were nice, which houses had problems, what buyers really wanted. They had inside information. They just never used it for themselves. Maria's first year was tough, but she had something other real estate agents didn't. She understood both sides. She knew what it was like to dream of owning a home, and she knew what it was like to be inside homes every day. That mix made her amazing at her job. Here's what's wild about this. When Maria became the first person in her family to actually own property instead of just cleaning it, she wasn't leaving her family's values behind. She was honoring them. She was taking all their knowledge about homes and turning it into something they never had the guts to build. But here's where it gets really powerful. Maria didn't just change her own life. She changed what was possible for everyone who comes after her. Her daughter doesn't think people like us can't own businesses. She thinks, of course I can. Look what mom built. Now Maria has 12 agents working for her. Her sister left housekeeping and works in her office. Her cousin got her real estate license too. Her daughter is studying business in college, talking about growing the family company. The same family that made generations of "we serve others" is now making "we lead others." This is what becoming the greatest your family has ever seen really means. It's not about being better than your ancestors. It's about being the ancestor they always dreamed of becoming. Maria wasn't rejecting her family's hard work. She was taking their stored-up potential and finally letting it explode into reality. And here's the beautiful part. Every time someone in Maria's family does something bold now, they're not breaking tradition. They're following the new tradition she started. The tradition of ownership, the tradition of taking risks, the tradition of building instead of just maintaining. So when your great-grandchildren ask about you 50 years from now, they won't find someone who broke away from the family. They'll find someone who showed the family what they were capable of all along. They'll find the ancestor who took generations of stored dreams and finally made them real. You're not becoming the black sheep of your family. You're becoming the one the whole flock follows. And that change, that's not just changing your family line. That's completing its destiny. So here we are, back where we started, but everything has changed. Remember that question from the beginning? What if everything you've inherited, your family's fears, society's expectations, even your own self-doubt, is not your destiny, but just the starting point for becoming the greatest your family has ever seen? Now you know the answer, and it's not what you thought. You see, Sarah didn't become great despite her family of teachers. She became great because of them. All those generations of people who spent their lives helping others learn, that's exactly what gave her the heart to help others through her business. Marcus didn't succeed despite his family's play it safe thinking. He succeeded because of it. All those years of watching his family avoid risk taught him exactly what risks were worth taking. Maria didn't rise above her family's cleaning background. She rose through it. Every house her family cleaned, every family they worked for, every day they spent understanding what makes a home special, that became the foundation of her real estate business. And that inheritance you thought was holding you back, those invisible chains we talked about, they were never chains at all. They were roots. Deep, strong roots that have been growing for generations, building the foundation for someone like you to finally reach heights your family could only dream of. Here's what Machiavelli really understood, and what your ancestors never figured out. The same fear that kept them small is the exact fuel you need to become unforgettable. Their worry becomes your wisdom. Their waiting becomes your preparation. Their put-off dreams become your real dreams. You're not breaking away from your family. You're breaking your family free. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you're not disrespecting their memory. You're finishing their story. You're becoming the chapter they always hoped someone would write. Think about it. What if your great-grandmother's fear of taking risk wasn't weakness? What if it was research? What if she was unknowingly gathering information about what not to do, so that when you came along, you'd know exactly how to do it right? What if your grandfather's quiet acceptance wasn't giving up? What if it was him storing up all his unused dreams, pushing them down like a spring, waiting for the right person in the right generation to finally let it go? What if every be realistic and play it safe, and people like us don't do that, wasn't holding you back, but getting you ready? What if your whole family history was just one long setup for this moment, when someone finally says, "Watch me"? Because here's the truth that changes everything. You were never meant to run away from your inheritance. You were meant to complete it. Every chain that held your ancestors back becomes a step in the ladder you'll climb. Every fear they swallowed becomes fuel for the fire you'll light. Every dream they put off becomes the vision you'll make real. Your family didn't give you limits. They gave you a launching pad. And the greatest your family has ever seen isn't someone different from who you are. It's who you become when you finally understand that your inheritance was never meant to trap you. It was meant to prepare you. The circle completes itself. The story that started with invisible chains ends with unbreakable strength. And you're not the end of your family's story. You're the beginning of the story they always wanted to tell. Remember that question from the very beginning? The one about carrying your family's need to be liked as something heavy, or using their fear of standing out as fuel. Here's what I couldn't tell you then. There was never really a choice to make. Your family didn't give you something heavy or fuel. They gave you fuel that looked heavy until you learned how to burn it. Every fear your great-grandmother held back wasn't weakness. It was research. Every dream your grandfather gave up wasn't failure. It was storage. Every time someone in your family said, "People like us don't do that," they weren't limiting you. They were loading you up with compressed energy, waiting for someone brave enough to finally let it loose. You weren't meant to escape your inheritance. You were meant to complete it. This changes everything about how you see your past, your family, and your future. Every person who feels held back by where they came from can now see that where they came from is exactly what will launch them forward. Your background isn't your limitation, it's your launching pad. Your family's fears aren't your burden, they're your fuel. And becoming the greatest your family has ever seen, that's not breaking away from them. That's becoming exactly who they've been preparing you to be. So here's the question only someone who's completed this journey can answer. Now that you know your family's limitations were actually preparation, what do you think you're unconsciously preparing the next generation for? Think about that, and let me know in the comments what you discover. If this circular journey opened your eyes to a completely new way of seeing your family story, subscribe to join thousands of others who are turning their inheritance into their advantage. Because every ending is just the beginning of a deeper circle.